Hey everyone, welcome back to MGS Stories. I'm Sunny Raman, and today I've got a chilling and emotional tale for you that's sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. We dive deep into the story of Emily, a young woman haunted not only by ghosts, but by her past regrets. If you enjoy motivational and horror stories, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me and encourages me to keep creating these stories for you. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into the haunting of Waverly Hospital. Emily Sanders had spent the last few years in a constant state of restlessness. At 28, her life felt stalled. She had once dreamed of becoming an artist, but those dreams had withered beneath the weight of real-world responsibilities. Instead, she found herself working as a graphic designer, a job that drained her creativity and left her feeling numb. And the insomnia? That was just the cherry on top. Sleep was a stranger to Emily. Most nights she lay awake staring at the ceiling, her mind running wild with unfinished thoughts, regrets, and unfulfilled dreams. So when she saw an ad for a night shift security job at the old Waverly Hospital, she jumped at the opportunity. It was a chance to fill the endless hours of her sleepless nights while earning some extra cash. The hospital had been closed for years, abandoned after a scandal that no one seemed to want to talk about. There were whispers in the city about strange happenings in the building, voices echoing in empty hallways, doors slamming shut by themselves, and the feeling that you were never quite alone. But Emily brushed off the rumors. She didn't believe in ghosts. On her first night at Waverly, the hospital loomed like a forgotten giant. Its windows were cracked, and the paint was peeling from the walls. The air was thick with dust and something else, something heavier that Emily couldn't quite place. She walked into the small security office, flicking on the lights that flickered weakly in response. A single ancient desk sat in the corner, and a bank of old security monitors buzzed to life as she flipped the switch. The job seemed simple enough. Walk the halls, check for any signs of trouble, and stay awake. At first, everything seemed normal. Quiet, but normal. But as the night went on, Emily started to feel uneasy. The hallways seemed longer than they should have been, and the shadows danced in ways that made her question her own eyes. She heard noises, small, almost imperceptible things like distant footsteps and soft whispers. It's just an old building, she told herself. Old buildings make noise. But then came the crying. It started as a soft sob, barely audible over the sound of her own footsteps. Emily stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding in her chest. The sobbing continued, growing louder, coming from somewhere deep within the hospital. She followed the sound down the hall and into what used to be the emergency wing. The lights flickered as she approached an old patient room. The door was slightly ajar, and the sobbing was now unmistakable, as though someone was crying just on the other side. With trembling hands, Emily pushed the door open. The room was empty, except for an old, rusted hospital bed pushed against the far wall. But the sobbing didn't stop. It filled the room, echoing off the walls as if the very building itself was crying. Emily's breath caught in her throat, and she took a step back, trying to rationalize what was happening. But deep down, she knew there was no logical explanation. She hurried back to the security office, her heart still racing. For the rest of the night, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was watching her. She tried to focus on the security monitors, but every time she glanced at the screen showing the hallway outside the emergency wing, the picture would distort, static, filling the screen for just a moment before returning to normal. The next morning, Emily left Waverly feeling unsettled. She couldn't get the sound of the sobbing out of her head. She told herself it was just her imagination, that maybe the stories about the hospital had gotten to her more than she realized. But as the days went by, the strange occurrences became more frequent. Lights would flicker whenever she passed, doors would creak open by themselves, and the whispers, those faint, eerie whispers, seemed to follow her everywhere. Determined to figure out what was going on, Emily began researching the hospital's history. She learned about its dark past, about patients who had died mysteriously, and the staff who had left without a word. But one story stood out, the story of Lily Dawson, a young artist who had been admitted to Waverly years ago. Lily had been battling depression, and the hospital was supposed to help her. Instead, she died there, her death shrouded in mystery. The official report said she had taken her own life, but there were rumors that something or someone had driven her to it. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that Lily was the one haunting the hospital. The more she learned about Lily, the more she felt a strange connection to her. They were both artists who had lost their way, both stuck in lives they hadn't chosen. And the more Emily thought about it, the more she realized that Lily's unfinished artwork, paintings that had never seen the light of day, mirrored her own unfulfilled dreams. One night, as Emily was patrolling the hospital, she saw her, Lily. She was standing at the end of the hallway, her figure barely visible in the dim light. Her long, dark hair hung in loose waves, and her eyes, those deep, sorrowful eyes, seemed to plead for help. Emily froze, her heart pounding in her chest. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then slowly, Lily turned and walked toward one of the old patient rooms. Without thinking, Emily followed her. The room Lily led her to was one Emily had never entered before. It was filled with old, dusty sketches, Lily's sketches. They were scattered across the floor, some torn and others half-finished. Emily knelt down, picking up one of the drawings. It was a portrait, a haunting image of a woman with eyes filled with sorrow and pain. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She felt an overwhelming urge to finish what Lily had started. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was empathy, or maybe it was something more. But whatever it was, Emily knew she had to do it. For the next few weeks, Emily spent her nights working on Lily's sketches, filling in the missing pieces and bringing the portraits to life. As she worked, she felt a strange sense of peace, as though she was helping Lily find closure. But the more she painted, the more intense the supernatural occurrences became. The whispers grew louder, the shadows darker, and the temperature in the hospital dropped with each passing night. But Emily didn't stop. She couldn't. She was driven by a force she couldn't explain, as though completing Lily's artwork was the only way to bring an end to the haunting. One night, as Emily was putting the final touches on the last portrait, the lights in the room flickered violently. A cold wind swept through the room, and for a moment, Emily thought she saw Lily standing behind her watching her work. But when she turned around, the room was empty. With a trembling hand, Emily finished the portrait. The moment she did, the hospital fell silent. The whispers stopped, the shadows receded, and the oppressive weight that had hung over the building lifted. Emily stood there, staring at the finished portrait, her heart pounding in her chest. She had done it. She had given Lily the closure she needed. The next morning, Emily left Waverly for the last time. She had quit her job as a security guard and decided to pursue her dream of becoming an artist. The experience had changed her. She was no longer afraid of her past, no longer haunted by the regrets that had once kept her awake at night. As for Waverly Hospital, it remained abandoned, but Emily knew that it was no longer haunted. Lily had found peace, and so had she. Thank you for joining me for The Haunting of Waverly Hospital. I hope you found Emily's story both chilling and inspiring. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to MGS Stories. Your support really motivates me to keep bringing you these stories every day. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay safe, stay inspired, and remember, sometimes it's the darkest paths that lead to the brightest destinations.